Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I have a little piece of news that actually several people sent to me. I've been sitting on this a few days actually, and I just now decided to get around to it. But I think it's a pretty big deal because this is involving Herbalife, however we pronounce it. I believe the H is supposed to be silent in herbs. Should know that I know all about herbalism when I played World of Warcraft. So let's come over to the point here. This is actually, I'm going to read from an abstract in PubMed, right? This is in PubMed, so this is coming from researchers, medical professionals, and here's what they had to say about this. And I'm going to jump into some of my concerns with just the supplement industry in general, but here's what they wrote. Herbalife is a global nutrition and weight management company selling and marketing nutritional and weight loss supplements. The United States Federal Trade Commission describes Herbalife in 2016 as a scam disguised as healthy living. Herbalife-associated liver injury was reported from multiple countries in the West. India is fast becoming the largest growing market for Herbalife products, expected to surpass the United States in sales revenue. We report the first case of a fatal acute liver failure from the Asian Pacific region in a young woman who consumed Herbalife products over 2 months. We also present unsettling data that showcase heavy metal contamination, toxic compounds, psychotropic substances, and pathogenic bacterial contamination in similar Herbalife products in India. The growth of Herbalife in India and expansion of its nutrition clubs in major cities that promise fake health benefits portend a serious public health concern. And this is kind of the problem we have with the fitness industry in general as it pertains to supplements. And I'm not saying some supplements don't have uses. I'm not saying some supplements don't have potential health benefits. But by and large, they really don't. And that's the scary thing. I mean, when people talk about, oh, I opened a nutrition store, what does that usually mean? Like anyone who wasn't part of this weird industry, the first thing that would pop in your head with a nutrition store would be, what are they selling? Grass-fed meat, right? Free-range eggs, organic vegetables. I mean, what do we think of as nutrition? That's called a grocery store, guys. The grocery store is a nutrition store. A grocery store is a nutrition shop where you buy your food. That's what nutrition is. All right, supplements are not necessarily healthy, and that's the thing that they get marketed as, is this whole industry tries to market itself as if it's healthy or it's going to help you lose weight or anything else. Like the only thing that makes you lose body fat is a caloric deficit. Now, we can argue in certain instances, things like blood sugar and insulin management and things outside of a caloric deficit in some extreme cases can cause significant fat loss. Now, we can argue that resistance training and good nutrition for short periods of time can cause recomposition, but that's going to be very, very small losses in body fat, right? You're not going to lose 20 pounds of body fat without a serious caloric deficit. It's just simply not going to happen. You're not going to recomposition your way to that. So again, these are cases of small things can be done sometimes without it, but generally speaking, you need a caloric deficit. That just means you eat less total food, right? Supplements don't help you with that. They really and truly do not help you lose body fat. Most over-the-counter fat burners don't work, and the only one that worked got banned. It became illegal, and that was ephedra that actually had research showing that it worked. And people will say, why? Because that makes it a drug, right? If you have a substance that can actually help you lose body fat measurably in clinical trials, that's going to be made illegal because that's not something that should be done outside of the supervision of a doctor. That's classified as a drug. Supplement companies aren't allowed to sell stuff like that. They're not allowed to sell you drugs. They're not allowed to sell you substances that are controlled substances. And something that literally has the ability to help you lose 5 extra pounds of body fat, when you're talking about something like that, that's a powerful drug. That's powerful stuff. That's not a minor thing. You're not going to do that with some silly over-the-counter product. You're talking a serious drug to have that big of an effect. 5 pounds of body fat's a major change without a serious dieting happening. Not talking about water loss, we're talking about actual fat loss. 5 pounds of fat loss would be a very powerful drug. If it could do that to you inside of a month or inside of 6 weeks just by taking that drug, that is some potent shit. And you have to think about that in terms of energy turnover. I mean, we're dealing with something like a thyroid hormone, which is a prescription drug, or you're dealing with a pretty hefty dose of something like clenbuterol, which is a controlled substance. That you're dealing with something like that to be able to pull that off. That's not stuff that they're going to be able to legally sell you because those are serious drugs with serious side effects. So none of this has to do with health. It's all just usually snake oil. And that's one of the biggest problems we have with this industry is that a lot of these companies are not regulated that much, and you really have to do your research and your due diligence. The popularity of a company has no relevance to if their products, number one, work, number two, if they're safe. I mean, if you go back and look at consumer reviews, when they took all the popular protein powders, some major brands of protein that a lot of people loved the taste of turned out to have unacceptable levels of lead, arsenic, other heavy metals in them, right? Excessive levels of arsenic. And we're talking name brand ones you can go buy at GNC. You can buy at the vitamin shop, right? We're talking major brands of protein powder. So people will say, well, there's no risk. Protein powder is just food. Yeah, if it is just food. But what happens when it has unacceptable levels of lead and arsenic in it? You're telling me that's not a problem? That's not a risk? Well, that's the thing. You have companies like Consumer Reports go and pull this stuff and find that. Then you have the Herbalife, yeah, heavy metals, and to the point to where people have died now from liver toxicity from their over-the-counter supplements. The same thing, people say, oh, just pop a multivitamin. That's not acceptable. Number one, multivitamins aren't even guaranteed to be safe. Number two, they're usually just trying to make up for something piss poor in your diet. Like, I'm sorry, but unless there's something seriously wrong with your diet, and I mean a major deficiency, there probably isn't more than one or two things you're deficient in your diet. Look, it's not uncommon to be deficient in one thing. Not uncommon to be deficient in two things. Maybe you have a vitamin D deficiency. Maybe you have a vitamin B12 deficiency. If you've got like an iron deficiency, it's probably an absorption issue, and taking iron is not necessarily going to help you. But a lot of times when you have a major deficiency that's medical related, you can go to your doctor and they can prescribe you something that's guaranteed to work, guaranteed to be pure, whatever it is that you're missing in your diet. That can be done medically. You don't need a multivitamin for that. And if you can look at what you're eating and the content of your food, you know what you're deficient in. All of us can look through our diet. Their tools are available. Realize what we eat day to day and say, man, I don't really get enough vitamin K in my diet. But that doesn't mean you need to go pop a multivitamin. It means you need to add a little bit of spinach or broccoli to your diet is what it means. Maybe you're looking at your diet and saying, okay, maybe I'm not getting enough B12. Okay, so you could take a B12. All right, particularly a lot of you who aren't eating enough meat, that could be an issue. So I'm not saying you can't take a pure single vitamin if you know for a fact you're deficient in it, but these big broad spectrum multivitamins, that's a perfect example of something that's actually risky. It's actually potentially dangerous, has potential toxicity risk with no guaranteed health benefits. I mean, and that's what we're talking about with this whole industry, and you need to understand that. I mean, this is a case of an entire company has been trashed by the medical community. It has killed people. People have died. All these products from a lot of these companies, when you go look at the independent stuff like Consumer Reports, oftentimes they're not the purest product that you think they are. You're not always getting what you think you are. And sometimes they have unacceptable levels of lead and arsenic and stuff. And I can tell you right now, none of you need to add more arsenic to your diet to get better gains. Okay? I can tell you right now, adding extra arsenic to your diet is not going to give you better abs, not going to improve your bicep peaks, and it's not going to increase your bench press. There are no health benefits to adding arsenic to your diet. And that's a perfect example. You got to research this stuff before you buy these products. You need to find out what in the hell you're putting in your body. Because these companies aren't always that regulated, or they do stuff and they get away with it till they get caught, and then they change it, take the slap on the wrist, but they made a $10 million profit. Right? They routinely spike amphetamines, anabolic steroids, things like that get spiked in over-the-counter products, and even in the U.S. all the time. Most of them don't get caught, and occasionally they get caught for it. They get fined, but these companies stay in business. We have quite a few cases that happen. Hell, it happened to bodybuilding.com. What did they pay? A $7 million fine for spiking products with steroids? Bodybuilding.com paid a $7 million fine for this. $7 million fine. It didn't shut them out of business. They're still the number one distributor in the country of supplements, right? In spite of a $7 million fine. That's how much money they made that they took a slap on the wrist and just kept going. You need to keep that in mind when you look at these companies. And Herbalife, this is one where now this is a problem, right? The Federal Trade Commission cracked down on it. You have medical doctors warning you about it right here in an abstract in PubMed. Right? This is a problem, guys. You need to be selective about which of these companies you buy into and what you put into your body. And I'm not saying every one of them are bad, but a whole hell of a lot of them are. And just because they're popular and trendy and have big names endorsing them, or 1 million people buy their products, that is by no means even close to a guarantee that it's not killing people. And Herbalife is a textbook example. And so is that situation with bodybuilding.com. These are some of the biggest, most popular supplement companies in the world. And they've been hit with hefty penalties for putting dangerous substances in their products. Something to be aware of. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.